not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path.
We're here in Beitostøl in Norway at the Norwegian Summer School 2014, learning about the 12 signs of love. The keynote speaker this year is Tom Price, who is the author of a book on this subject and is also a musician. There is a quotation in the Baha'i writings which expresses the theme of this summer school. They whose hearts are warmed by the energizing influence of God's creative love cherish His creatures for His sake and recognize in every human face a sign of His reflected glory. Tom, would you please tell us about your upcoming book and your talks at this summer school?
Yes, the title of the book and the summer school is called The 12 Signs of Love. And really what I wanted to do was define what love actually is in terms of practice. We often talk about love, I love this or I love that, but we don't know what it means. And so I divided love into actions. What can you do to be a loving person? Because sometimes we don't know what love looks like, what it behaves like. And so I divided love into 12 things, and if you can do those things, then you will be a more loving person. So you learn to listen to people, you learn to praise people, you learn to look at the good qualities in people, you learn to try and make people happy, you learn to forgive people when they do things that are not so good to you, and so on. These are the manifestations of love. In other words, love has to have some way of showing itself, and these are the ways you can show love. And in this way we can gradually practice the little things that in total make love. So if you want to be a more loving person to your family, to your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your workmates, these are things that you can do. Because everyone in the world needs to learn how to love more and more, and this is what the world needs. This is the most important thing everybody needs to learn. So we try to break it down into little manageable actions that each of us can try and do every day. I selected 12 because I like the number 12, and there's 12 months of the year and 12 signs of the zodiac and all kinds of different things. I'm a musician, you know, we have 12 notes that we play. So I thought this was a beautiful way of breaking love down into its small components.
Let your heart burn, let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn, let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path.
Okay, friends, how are you feeling? Are you ready to go home and practice the 12 signs of love? You think so? Can you all remember what they are? Because I'm not going to summarize them again. They complained to me bitterly in the translation booth because I spoke too fast last time. Is that right? Was I speaking too fast for you? Okay, I apologize. But there's so many interesting things about this, and I hope that we will all go home and try and practice these 12 signs of love. And I've said over and over again that all you need to do is make a plan every day to try and practice one of the 12 signs of love, or some of them each day. And so this last session, I want to talk to you about how can we practice the 12 signs of love? How exactly can we do it? What is the method why we do this? I've already said that it's very simple, that you need to do it every single day and only worry about it today. So I made a list of what I think is the best way to really learn to practice the 12 signs of love. And that is to allow you to learn to love through what I call the 9 spheres of emanation of love. In other words, love emanates through 9 spheres. And if you do not practice it in each one of these spheres and let it emanate, then you will not actually be able to do it. Because there's actually a correlation between learning certain kinds of love and others. And so I would like to describe this method and see if you try it and see if it works. First of all, the core of the emanation of love is your love for God. You have to, first of all, practice the 12 signs of love with God before you can go any further. Baha'i says this: if one possesses the love of God, everything that he undertakes is useful. But if the undertaking is without the love of God, then it is hurtful and the cause of veiling oneself from the Lord of the kingdom. But with the love of God, every bitterness is changed into sweetness, and every gift becometh precious. For instance, a musical and melodious voice imparteth life to an attracted heart, but lureth towards lust those souls who are engulfed in self and passion. What he's saying is that you can have the same melody, but to one person it attracts them to the spirit, another person it attracts them to lust or self and passion. It's the same way with your actions. They have to be informed with the love of God for them to have any effect on people. So the love of God is the first thing you have to do. In other words, you have to first learn to accept and tolerate God before you can accept and tolerate people. You have to first learn even to forgive God if he doesn't do something. You have to learn to listen to God, listening to God. You have to learn to make God happy, to not make God unhappy. In other words, look at all the 12 signs of love. You need to practice those first with God. So if you want to learn to have praise and gratitude for other people, you have to every day praise God. You every day have gratitude towards God. In other words, every one of these 12 signs of love, if they don't begin with your love for God, you're not going to be able to do them in any of the other 9 spheres of love. This is the beginnings of it. Baha'i talks about the 4 kinds of love in Paris Talks. I think you've probably read that. He's mentioned it in some other writings as well. He says there's 4 kinds of love, and of course the love of God for man and the love of man for God are 2 of the first 4. When he gets to the 4th, he says it's the love of man for man. In other words, we need to love man. In other words, other people. And he says this love exists between the hearts of believers is prompted by the ideal unity of spirits. This love is attained through the knowledge of God, so that men see the divine love reflected in the heart. Each sees in the other the beauty of God reflected in the soul, and finding this point of similarity, they are attracted to one another in love. So he's saying even when you love other people, it is caused by your love of God and your seeing of God in them. And later on, Baha'i says, without this foundation, you will find it impossible to love anyone. Therefore, to practice the 12 signs of love, first look down those 12 and say, I need to do them with God. Today I need to praise God. Today I need to show gratitude towards God. And all the others. Today I need to make God happy. Today I need to not make God unhappy, and so on. This is a very simple principle, but it is the beginning of love flowing in you that will flow out. And then we move on to the other 9. Now before I move on to the other 9, I want to read a quotation from Baha'u'llah. It's from the Kitab-i-Aqdas. If you know the quotation, you know the answer. Don't guess. But those of you that have not heard this or don't remember it, I want you to guess what I'm leaving out. And I'm going to read it to you. Baha'u'llah says, the fruits that best befit the tree of human life are trustworthiness and godliness, truthfulness and sincerity. Okay, so he says there's 4 fruits on the tree of human life, and these that best befit the tree of your life are trustworthiness, godliness, truthfulness, and sincerity. The big 4 according to Baha'u'llah. But then he says this, he says, but greater than all of these, so those 4, it's got to be greater than trustworthiness, godliness, truthfulness, sincerity, but greater than all these, after the recognition of the unity of God, is blank. So let's get this right. Baha'u'llah says the greatest of all is recognition of God. And then there's something else that's greater. And then there's trustworthiness, godliness, truthfulness, and sincerity. But greater than those, only second only to recognition of God, is this other thing. Okay? So we know it can't be trustworthiness. We know it can't be godliness, truthfulness, or sincerity. It's got to be greater than those things. Who would like to guess what is, Baha'u'llah says, what is the greatest of all things next to the unit recognition of God? What is the greatest of all things? And now if you know what it is and you've read it, I don't want you to answer. But if you can guess what is the greatest thing, according to Baha'u'llah, next to recognition of God, who wants to guess? And we can all have some guesses. Yes, what do you think?
Following his laws.
Following his laws. So recognition of God is the first. Following his laws is the second, and greater than truthfulness, sincerity, and all that. Who thinks it's following his laws? One person only? Only 2 of you? 3 of you? Okay. Who has another guess? Maybe that's right, by the way. I may just be tricking you, and you may have said the right thing first. Who's got another guess? Love of mankind. How many think it's love of mankind? The greatest thing of all, next to unit recognition of God, is nobody thinks that? 2 people, 3 people, 4. I'm sorry? To serve his creation. How many think that's what is the greatest thing? Next to recognition. Okay, who's got another one? This is right from the Kitab-i Agan, Baha'u'llah's, the Kitab-i Aqdas, Baha'u'llah's. Who wants to? Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry? The love of God. So next to, you think, next to recognition of God, you think it's the love of God. Who thinks that's what it is? Raise your hand. Oh, plenty of you. Okay, who's got another guess? Yes? Detachment. Detachment is the greatest of all things next to the recognition of God. How many think it's detachment? The greatest of all things. Okay? Do you think we've got it yet? Who's got another guess? Yes? The fear of God. The greatest of all things next to the recognition of God is the fear of God. Who's got another guess? Yes? Devotion. How many think it's devotion? Anyone? Any more guesses? Teaching? That's the greatest thing? Okay. Do you want me to read you from the Kitab-i Aqdas? I'll start it again. The fruits that best befit the tree of human life are trustworthiness and godliness, truthfulness and sincerity. But greater than all, after the recognition of the unity of God, praised and glorified be He, is regard for the rights that are due to one's parents. His regard to honor one's parents is greater, it's greater than trustworthiness, godliness, truthfulness, sincerity. It's the greatest of all things next to the recognition of God. And that's Baha'u'llah in his most holy book, the Kitab-i Aqdas. Therefore, I believe that the emanation of love begins with your love for God and then must spread to love for your parents. Must spread with love for your parents. This is how we learn to love. We have to learn to love in the primal relationship with our parents. Until we learn to love our parents, then we cannot let love emanate out to the other 9. We love God first, we love our parents next. Abdu'l-Baha says this: a father and mother endure the greatest troubles and hardships for their children, and often when the children have reached the age of maturity, the parents pass on to the other world. Rarely does it happen that a father and mother in this world see the reward of the care and trouble they have undergone for their children. Therefore, children, in return for this care and trouble, must show forth charity and beneficence, and must implore pardon and forgiveness for their parents. So you ought, in return for the love and kindness shown to you by your Father, to give to the poor for his sake, with greatest submission and humility, implore pardon and remission for the sins, for his sins, and ask for the supreme mercy. And there are many other passages in the Baha'i writings, the Bab, as well as, the Bab said every time you say a prayer, you should always say a prayer for your parents. Every time you ever sit down to pray, you should pray to God. And there are many Baha'i prayers revealed for parents. So one needs to learn to love their parents. Now, if you have love for your parents right now, for your mother and your father, you still need to practice the 12 signs of love by showing that to them today. You know, don't just say, oh, I love them, so that's good. You have to practice the 12 signs of love to your parents. If they're not around, like you say they've gone on to the next world, you should pray for them. You should think about them. You should love them. You should forgive them. You should, you know, whatever it is, the 12 signs, practice them in relation to your parents first. If you don't love your parents and you go out and love everybody else, you don't have it right, because love emanates. Sometimes when we're young, particularly when we're teenagers, we rebel against our parents. Have any of you gone through that stage in life where you rebelled against your parents? Yes. And have any of you got children that are going through that stage or have gone through that stage where they rebelled against you? Whenever I think about that, I always think of the statement of Mark Twain. And he said that when he was 14, he said his father was so ignorant and stupid that he could hardly bear to be around the old man. He said, but when he turned 21, he was astonished at how much the old man had learned in the last 7 years. And you see, this is a very interesting thing, because children do go through that little phase, you know, about 14 to 21, and they do it. And I learned a very interesting, is it a Norwegian belief?
Swedish.
It's a Swedish belief. It says you have not grown up until you have forgiven your parents. I love that. It's a beautiful statement. Thank you for that. And so this is the Baha'i teachings, that love emanates. First, your love for God, and then it spreads to your parents. If you don't practice those two loves of God, I don't know how you're going to move on to the rest. The third love that I see in the Baha'i writings that spreads is not necessarily for everybody right now, but it's for a large portion of humanity, and it may be for any of you in the future if it's not present now, is the love of your spouse, the love of your husband, or the love of your wife. There's no point really in going out and trying to love mankind and to love, you know, everybody if you can't even have a loving relationship in your own home. So you need to learn it there. And over again in the Baha'i writings, we are told that one of the purposes of life is to learn to have a primary love relationship with the husband or wife. He says that if you do this, it creates a fortress for the well-being of your own soul, that it does that. And so Abdu'l-Baha writes, and we can read many passages, he says the purpose of marriage in the Baha'i faith is that the husband and wife become loving companions and comrades at one and eternity. True Baha'i marriage is this, that they are united both physically and spiritually, that they ever improve the spiritual life of each other, and may enjoy everlasting unity throughout all the worlds of God. The Lord, peerless as He, hath made woman and man to abide with each other in the closest companionship, to be even as a single soul. They are helpmates, two intimate friends who should be concerned about the welfare of each other. And basically what Abdu'l-Baha is saying is that God has created this institution. He says it has existed from the beginning of time and will exist. He says the law of marriage will never be changed. It's not something that one manifestation of God may take away in the future. He says it will always be there. And my belief is because Baha'u'llah says some laws set the world in order. They set the world in order. It says in the marriage tablet, in order to set the world in order, he ordained laws such as the law of marriage. Because the world is founded upon unity, built upon unity, built upon unity, built upon unity. You must have a fundamental unity in the family before you can have unity in the community. And until you can have unity in the community, you can't have unity in the city and then in the nation and so on. Abdu'l-Baha says that unities are built upon each other. And it so happens that the fundamental foundation of unity is in the family, and the fundamental foundation of unity of the family is between husband and wife. You are actually causing harm to the unity of mankind by having disunity in a marital relationship. And you are causing the unity of mankind by having unity between husband and wife. This is basically what we're told. And Abdu'l-Baha says, if you can live in a unified relationship with a husband and wife, he says, if this is the case, then, quote, they will pass through this world with perfect contentment, bliss, and peace of heart, and become the object of divine grace and favor in the kingdom of heaven. But, and this is a warning, he says, if you don't have unity within a marital relationship, but if they do other than this, they will live out their lives in great bitterness, longing at every moment for death, and will be shamefaced in the heavenly realm. You know, if you have a disunited marriage. Strive then to abide heart and soul with each other as two doves in the nest, for this is to be blessed in both worlds. So basically, the way I understand it is this, is that the hardest love relationship you're ever going to have to learn is with your husband or your wife. It's hard, because you can't get out of it. Okay? You virtually cannot get out of it. If you read the Baha'i writings, and if you read the teachings in Islam and Christianity, marriage is an institution that he says, come together and stay together. At all costs, stay together. Make a superhuman effort to stay together. And if you have to do that, it forces you to learn the 12 signs of love. It's like a laboratory to learn. If you can learn forgiveness, if you can learn compassion, if you can learn generosity, if you can learn seeing the good within your marital relationship, that can then easily be translated. And so I think he gives us this relationship so that we can learn to love. First, he gives us a relationship with God, we learn how to love. Then he really gives us the relationship with our parents, we learn how to love more. Then he gives us a relationship with a spouse, we learn how to love more. These are the foundations because we learn more than anything else. If we decide not to engage in these relationships, we are losing the ability to learn to love. If we decide not to love God, we're losing it. If we decide not to love our parents, we're losing the ability to learn. If we are given the opportunity to learn to love in a marital relationship, we must always take that opportunity. Sometimes we decide it's better to leave the marriage. And Shoghi Effendi said, remember, when you do that, you're usually causing more hardship for yourself in the future. Because really, whatever hardships you've been given to learn love in the marital relationship is a gift to you. It's a gift. God gave you the gift to learn that lesson so you could become a more loving person, score more goals in this life and go to the next world. And instead you say, no, I prefer not to learn that lesson. So you need to say to yourself, this relationship that I am in is the way to learn love. And now you can see love is emanating from God to your parents to marriage. The fourth relationship, and this is only for some people, but a lot of people, is to learn to love your children. These are just, love has to emanate through God into your spouse and into your family, and you need to learn to love your children. And the love of children is just the reverse of children loving parents. You need to show love to your children, and that means you need to look at the 12 signs of love tomorrow and say, am I doing every one of those with my children? What's the point of going out and practicing the 12 signs of love in the community if you're yelling and screaming and abusing and not seeing the good qualities in your children? Learn it first in the home. The fifth emanation of love is your brothers and your sisters. Now this is a hard one, okay, because your brothers and sisters, like children to parents have a different relationship. Parents to children have a man to God. They're all different. But Brothers and sisters, they're the same as us. So many times we have jealousies or rivalries with them because, you know, we're competing for the same things. They might be competing for the use of the bathroom at the same time, or the food on the table. Or you understand what I mean? It's a very interesting relationship, sibling relationships. So we learn a different kind of love. All of these love relationships, we learn something that can then be applied further on down the stream. How many of you have brothers and sisters? Okay. How many of you have looked down the 12 signs of love and said, I want to apply those to my brother and sister? Yes, you must do that. You must just go down and say, I want to apply it to my brother and my sister. And if you have any kind of unloving relationship with any of your brothers and sisters, you need to correct that. And correct it before you go to the next world, because you're going to see them in the next world. Everyone I know that's ever recounted stories of the next world say their family are all there. God knows you don't want to go to the next world and still have a grudge with your brother and sister. The sixth emanation is the whole rest of your family. Anyone else, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your nephews, and so on. Now, of course, if you're Persian, that means everybody in the world, of course, because every Persian seems to be related to every other Persian. But for the rest of us, it's, you know, usually about 20, 30, 40 people or something like that. And you need to have a loving relationship with every person in your family. If you can learn these first six, from God to your parents, to your spouse, if you have one, to your children, to your brothers and sisters, to your family, if you can get that right, then you're ready to let your love emanate out, because Adabaha says love is built on foundations and foundations. And you come to this next group of people, and this group of people, who wants to guess what is the next group of people you have to learn to love? I'm sorry? Yeah, I've picked the Baha'is, the other Baha'is. I picked this because they are your family too. They are an extension of your family. And of course, if you are a Baha'i, your Baha'i community, you need to learn to love that. And actually, this is also hard too. It's kind of like learning to love your spouse can be hard. Learning to love your Baha'i community is a means whereby we can learn to love mankind. Because in your Baha'i community, you may have people that you would not normally associate with. You know, if you get to pick your own friends, isn't that right? So you can decide who you want to be with and who you don't. You don't get to pick who's on your local assembly, or you don't get to pick who's in your Baha'i community. As a result, you end up having to deal with all kinds of people. And by learning to create a loving community, this is the way you can transform the world. Shoghi Effendi says, the greater the patience, the loving understanding and forbearance the believers show towards each other and their shortcomings, the greater will be the progress of the whole Baha'i community at large. Okay, so the greater the progress, how good is the progress of the Baha'i community in Norway? It's pretty good, I think. But it will be greater if there's more love and understanding and forbearance among the believers. And the more love and understanding, the more there will be progress. Don't think that the progress of the faith is due to the fact that we're not doing any particular thing. You might stand up at a meeting and say, friends, the progress of the faith is no good because you guys aren't doing that, or you're not doing that, or this is not happening, or our local assembly is doing blah, 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 or, you know, there's not enough this or not enough that. Those things may be important. But Shoghi Effendi said that the progress of the community is dependent on how much love we have for each other. Also, we don't realize that the Baha'i community has a power in and of itself that we can draw upon, and that is the power of love. Here the Guardian says, indeed, the believers have not yet fully learned to draw on each other's love and strength and consolation in time of need. The cause of God is endowed with tremendous powers, and the reason the believers do not gain more from it is because they have not learned to fully draw on these mighty forces of love and strength and harmony generated by the faith. He says there's a power in the faith, and that is the power of love. And we haven't learned to draw upon that power. We don't use that power to help each other in times of need. He says consolation and strength. In time of need, we don't do it. Perhaps we don't give consolation and strength to others in our community in time of need, or perhaps we don't draw upon that from the Baha'i community in our times of need and needing of consolation. But for some reason, the Guardian is saying that this is a tremendous power. Love is a power, and the Baha'i community is meant to be a power-generating station, to generate that. And by this means, the world will be transformed. Until the Baha'i community is united, there will be no advance of the faith. There will be no changing the world. We can only change the world and make the world united if we can first unite ourselves. How united is your Baha'i community? Is your Baha'i community united? Can you honestly say that there's never any disunity in your Baha'i community? Everybody loves everybody, everybody smiles, everybody's willing to die. Is that how your Baha'i community is? No? Okay, can you say that about your family? Is your family ever willing to die? Is it completely united? Can you say that about your marriage? Can you say that? In other words, you have to think, is there love and unity in these primal relationships? And the Baha'i community is the means whereby you can learn to love. If you want to practice the 12 signs of love, practice it on your Baha'i community. So that is number, and there's many more quotations. For example, here, he says, without the spirit of real love for Baha'u'llah, for his faith and its institutions, and the believers for each other, the cause can never really bring in large numbers. So we may think we want to attract more people to the cause. Can't do it if there's not love within your community. And over again. So that's the 7th sphere. Now the 8th sphere of love, and these are all equally important. It's just that you must do them all. And if you do them all, then you learn how to love. You learn more how to love in the earlier ones. You learn with God and with your parents and with your spouse and so on. And that teaches you love. And then what you've learned spreads. It's kind of like light. Light just emanates out from a central source of the sun. And so these are how they are. The next group are people that are immediately within your life. People that are immediately in your life. People in your life are who? They're your neighbors, your workmates, they're your friends, they're your associates. Some people say it's easier to love mankind in general than it is to love your neighbors. How many of you have neighbors that you don't have such a loving relationship with? You know, maybe, come on. Somebody lives next door to you, they get angry, or they ask you, they complain, or you don't have a good relationship. You need to begin there. Because Baha'u'llah often refers to love for your neighbors. In other words, don't say, I'm just going to go out and look for people I can be loving to that are easy to love. Because you all want to practice the 12 signs of love. I'm going to go home, I'm going to pick him, or I'm going to praise him. And it's really easy. You've got to look at the people that God has placed before you, and it's your neighbors. Over and over again, Baha'u'llah uses the word neighbor. He says, be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor, and look upon him with a bright and friendly face, and so on. And so we learn to be kind and considerate with anybody that we are with. Let me read you a statement of Abdu'l-Baha in this regard. He says, wherefore must the loved ones of God associate in affectionate fellowship with stranger and friend alike, showing forth to all the utmost loving kindness, disregarding their degree of capacity, never asking whether they deserve to be loved. So we love people and we never ask. How many of you have some neighbors that do not deserve to be loved? Come on. Okay, how many of you know somebody that doesn't really deserve to be loved? Are there people that don't deserve to be loved? Well, he says, don't even ask that question. It's not even a question whether they deserve or not to be loved. We love people irrespective of that. He says, in every instance, let the friends be considerate and infinitely kind. Let them never be defeated by the malice of the people, by their aggression and their hate, no matter how intense. You see, anytime someone shows hate or malice or what he says, aggression, he says, don't let that defeat us. Just say, ha ha ha, you can't beat me with that. In other words, view aggression and anger and hate as a challenge to your love. and say, my love is stronger than that. Because quite often we want to return aggression or hate with hate. And then they won and you lost. Because by their hate, they made you hateful. By their aggression, they made you aggressive, and so on. He says, let us never be defeated by that. He says, if others hurl darts against you, offer them milk and honey in return. If they poison your lives, sweeten their souls. If they injure you, teach them how to be comforted. If they inflict a wound upon you, be a balm to their sores. If they sting you, hold to their lips a refreshing cup. And this is Abdu'l-Baha's guidance. This seems almost impossible to do. But you are able to do this if you understand that this is an emanation of love that begins with your love of God, spreads through all these categories until ultimately you love all the people that you see. From here, it's just one big step, that you love all mankind, even all the people you don't see in your life. And that's the 9th sphere of love, that you love all mankind. In fact, Baha'u'llah said, let your vision be world-embracing, not confined to your own self. He said, glory not in this that you love your country, glory in this that you love your kind. In other words, this is a new kind of love. The kind of love that isn't just for your parents or just for your husband or wife or your spouse. It isn't for your children. It isn't for your family. It isn't for your community. It isn't even for the people that you come in contact with in life. Now you just love everybody. And this is the ultimate universal love that we must have. And unless we have the other 8, I don't know how you're going to reach that. Now, I want you to go out and practice the 12 signs of love. And I want you to make sure that you do all of these things. I want you to try every day to practice the 12 signs of love. How do you do it with your parents? I don't know. How do you do it with your wife? I don't know. How do you do it with... I don't know. But I'm particularly concerned, how do you do it with all mankind? You know, how do you do it with all mankind? How do you spread it? So I found that Abdu'l-Baha made a list in Paris Talks. He made a list of, let me count them. They're actually numbered. It's in Paris Talks. You can find page 73. He says that we have to do things, and he lists 6 things that you need to do. 6 things you need to do. But before we see what Abdu'l-Baha says, I want you now to tell me what you are going to do in relation to somebody. I want you all now to make a decision, one goal, to be loving to somebody. Okay, I don't mind who it is. It could be your parent. It could be your spouse. It could be your friend. I just want you to make one goal to love one person. And I want you to tell me specifically what you're going to do. I don't want you to tell me you're going to love them, okay? But I want you to tell me exactly what you're going to do, because there has to be a way that love manifests itself. It has to have some kind of action. So raise your hand now. Oh, we've got the microphone here. And tell me, how are you going to practice the 12 signs of love with this particular person? Okay, raise your hand. Who's going to practice some love? You are? What are you going to do? You're going to forgive the people that you're angry at. So, but you keep the mic there for a moment. So you're angry at people, is that right? Yeah, of course. We're all angry at somebody, isn't that right? You're not angry at everybody, but you're angry at some people. And you're going to forgive them. Now, how are you going to do that?
By thinking in another way, trying to wash away my heart.
Good. You're going to try and wash it away from your heart. That's very good. Now, what are you going to do in relation to them when you see them? Perhaps you're not going to say, I forgive you, because maybe that's not so right. What are you going to do that shows to them that you forgive them? You give them gifts. Yes, that's good. You're going to give them gifts. And when you say, I'm going to show them more love, exactly what do you mean by that? You're going to help them. Okay, very good. Now I'm hearing some good things. From now on, anybody, don't say, I'm going to love them or show them love. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear exact things you're going to do. I'm going to give them gifts. In other words, I want to hear the physical expression of love, not just the word love. Now, These people, how does it feel to you right now in your heart that you're going to do this?
It's very exciting, kind of, and it's also sad.
Very which?
It's also sad that that all this time I've been angry at them. And another point, I'm happy that I've learned so I can make it up.
Oh, it's interesting. So you're sad and happy. You're sad because you're thinking, why did I hold these things on for so long? And you're happy now that you're finally going to do that.
And I can see that now, how much I've hurt them.
You can see how much you've hurt them?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. This is great. What do you think of this? I think this is wonderful. Thank you. Okay, somebody else, tell me specifically what you're going to do to love a particular person or group of people. Yes, right here.
I'm going to write a letter to someone who has encouraged me a lot. What's the handwritten letter? Just tell them how much I appreciate what they did.
So you're going to write a letter to someone who encouraged you and tell them how much you appreciate what they did. So you're going to, that's, I guess, gratitude. Is that right? You're going to practice the law of the act of gratitude. That's very good. And we could all do that sometimes. Maybe there's somebody that we need to appreciate. Excellent. Who's got another thing they are going to do that's carrying out practically one of these signs of love to somebody? Yes, in the back here.
I think if the person that you meet, and you have never met them before, and I'm sure there must be one thing, either his face, or his clothes, or his weight. You can just mention only that thing. One positive thing you can say. You can say, what a beautiful hair you have.
What a which, I'm sorry?
What a beautiful hair. Or what a nice eyes you have.
Okay.
Just one positive thing. I'm sure you can find one positive thing and focus on that and say that to the person.
Okay. So this is not someone that you have in mind, but the next person you see that's brand new, you're going to look and see one positive thing and you're going to say it to them. Is that what you're going to do?
That's one.
Good. Make that your goal to do that today. Today. So don't say, I'm going to do that at some time or I really must get around to doing it. Make that your goal today. Somebody that you see, say one good positive thing and then score yourself at the end of the day. Very good. What are you going to do? Oh, okay. Keep your hands up so he can see who's next. So act in between, he could be running because, here we go, right here.
Thank you. My children, they have friends. And one thing that has been bothering me for some time is that one of the friends is visiting us all the time, you know? And sometimes I was thinking...
They're what are you?
One of my daughter's friends.
Yes.
She was almost visiting us too often.
Visiting you too often.
Her mother is always texting me, you know, can she come for visit?
Yes.
And this has bothered me for some time. But after going through these days, I'm thinking this is a gift I can give to her, you know, I can give to this family. I can think about it and behave in a different manner.
Okay. This is good. I like this. Because what he's saying is that he had a negative attitude towards someone.
Yes.
He had a negative attitude, and now, after reviewing Abdu'l-Baha's, guidance on love, he realized that this is not a negative thing, this is a positive thing. So you've changed your attitude. Something that formerly was bad is good, and now you're going to not be hurt when she visits you, which is good too, because also you'll be more relaxed and so on. And so I like that one very much. It's very good. And of course, she will know the difference, because I'm quite sure that she realizes that you don't have a positive attitude. You may not smile when she comes to you, oh, you're here again, kind of thing. She probably knows. I like that. Very simple, very practical, but you're learning to love. You're learning to love. Who's got another thing they're going to do after listening? Oh, back there, way back there. You always have to go back and forth. That's...
Yes. I've been dealing with a very bad work situation for quite a while. There's a conflict between my boss and myself and my colleagues.
Yes.
And listening to the 12 signs of love, every day, I sit and think that I can try to change this conflict. That this is just what I need as a recipe for changing our atmosphere at work. And I think one of the first things that I will do when I go back to work is, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to try to say to myself, when I go to work today, I am going to focus on one of the good qualities of my boss. First, I have to try to find them. But so I'm not that we can be hold it. Sustained. Yeah, we could be a maintainer, or we could choose to be a source of change. And maybe this is something that I can.
Okay, so you're going to try and practice the 12 signs of love in relation to your boss. And by the way, a lot of people have poor relations with their boss. So how many of you also have not the best relationship with your boss? Who's got it? Yeah, it's not uncommon. And you've chosen, of the 12 signs of love, to look at the good qualities of your boss. Is that what you've chosen? Is that right?
Yes, as a start.
As a start. Could all the others work? Are there certain things that make your boss happy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so
she is ignored a lot, and she is very happy when she's not ignored.
Okay,
So,
great. You see what she's doing is she's thinking about what makes the boss happy or unhappy, and you realize it. Okay, has your boss done things to you in the past that you need to forgive?
Definitely.
Okay. Are you going to erase those from your heart?
Something I'll have to work on, yes.
Okay.
I think everything that you have talked about here is something that's
yes, you could do. All. So in other words, once you see a good quality in your boss, do you have the courage to tell your boss they have that quality in a form of praise? Mm-hmm. You do?
But one thing that makes it difficult is not just my relationship with the boss, it's the whole, it's all my colleagues. It's a very bad, complicated situation. So I think
okay.
by being a good example or trying to be a positive change.
Good. So would you say that there's some backbiting amongst other people about the boss?
A lot.
Okay, so are you going to try and go to the bathroom a lot, or or some other tactic? Yeah, this is a very good one, because any relationship that you can't get out of is a great place to learn to love. You see, a lot of us, our friends, if we don't love them, we just leave them, okay? But you can't get out of your relationship with God. You can't get out of your relationship with your parents. You can't easily get out of your relationship with your spouse. And so you're forced to do it. In your case, it's not so easy to get out of your relationship with your boss, isn't that right? Because you'd have to get fired or leave or get another job. So I like it when people are forced to learn these things, because it means that you learn that you have that capacity. Okay, that's great. I like that one very much. Who's got another one? Here we go.
I have a brother that I love very much.
Yes.
And he's a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't talked to him for half a year, and I haven't seen him for a year. And when I come home, I will try to contact him and tell him that I love him.
Okay. You're going to tell him you love him. What else can you do? I mean, that's great.
I know I can't do anything if he doesn't want himself. I know he is in a program with like called LAR in Norway. And he's okay when he just uses this, but sometimes he uses more, and then he's not good.
Okay.
But I want to contact him, tell him I love him, and if he wants me, I want to meet him, yes.
And you want to meet him.
Yes.
And then maybe when you meet him, maybe you can try some of the others. Maybe you could praise his good qualities.
Yes.
Because maybe he's not so happy that people are always dwelling on his problems and his bad qualities and his drug use. I'm sure he has some good qualities.
He's a loving person.
Yes.
And he's, well, he's a very good person. I
Yes.
love him very much. And
Okay.
I know he loves me too.
Okay, very good. I'm very pleased to hear that too. Now, who's got another thing they're going to do? Very specific now. Yes, over here.
I have a very painful relationship with my mother.
With your mother?
So, of course, I have to start there.
I'm sorry that I read those quotations. But
I'm going to call her after this talk.
yes.
And then when I come home, I am going to take her golfing.
Take her what?
Golfing.
Golfing.
Yeah.
You're going to.
Spend time with her.
Oh.
Practice.
That.
I have spent a lot of time with her.
Does she likes to golf?
No, but she's very active. She's turning 80 and she just loves to do things. She doesn't like to sit at home and not do things.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take her out and be
Yes.
happy.
So you're going to practice the 12, one of the signs of love, which is to make people be the cause of happiness. Take her golfing. I say that when you take somebody golfing, that is holy work because there's holes in the ground. So, in fact, a golf course is the Holy Land, isn't it? So that's very good. Excellent. I like this very much, and I like that you chose your mother. Okay, who's got another thing they're going to do after hearing this talk? I'm sure that when you've been listening to this talk through the last 5 days, that you've been thinking about people in particular. Isn't that right? You cannot hear these things and not think, oh, I need to do it with him or her and so on. So I want to hear what these are. I want to know what you're going to do, because if you're not going to do anything, I really feel like I wasted my time. And I'm never going to come back to Norway again, because what's the point? If I just talk and you all nod your head, and many of you have come up and said, thank you very much for the speech.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to work on my relation with my dad.
With your dad?
Yes, I love him and his soul. And I long for him when he's not there. But when we are together, I get like a child, and he makes his way of behaving, makes me furious, angry. Yeah, I'm in a stage of youth, I think, still with my dad.
Yes. Yes.
And I have been wondering how I can change it, and I think, for me, the one thing I think is more easy in loving relation is with my children. So I think, instead of thinking of him as my dad, for a while, I have to think of him as my child.
Oh, okay.
And maybe that can help to practice the 12 signs of love.
Okay. Because you love your children even if they do bad things, isn't that right?
Yes.
And so you're using that form of love and extending that to your father.
I'm trying.
That's very good. Yes, of course. And remember, all you have to do is look down the list of the 12 and see which one of those can I do with my father. Okay? So you say, can I make my father happy? Can I forgive my father? Can I see a good quality in my father? Can I praise my father? Are you grateful for anything your father has ever done?
A lot of things, yes.
Yes, so you tell him, you express your gratitude. In other words, just look down that list and say, can I do any one of those? And if you do that one, then you will find that you can repair your relationship. And you might find that many of the things that he does that bothers you will go away. Because maybe if you give him love and attention and you listen to him, or whatever the sign is that you pick, you may find that the other ones disappear. Because negative qualities disappear from a person when you practice these things. So that's good. We've had one father and one mother and one brother. That's really good. Who has got some other things they're going to do? Over here, right here in the blue.
I have a friend.
Yes.
She often easily gets negative and backbiting.
Yes.
And that drains me. So often I don't take contact because I feel I don't have the energy to meet this. So it hit me that God has put her on my path, so I should care for her on behalf of Him.
Yes.
And that goes so deep, and I really feel I have to find my patience. I have to get myself aside so it doesn't drain me. So I have enough energy
Yes.
to meet it. Yeah. So I have to work with me.
So you...
Because I really want to love her for God's sake. I really, if he wants me to take care on his behalf, I really want to.
Good. So you've decided to show love to this person. Now tell me which of the 12 signs of love you're going to practice in relation to this friend. What exactly are you going to do?
More acceptance.
Okay, tolerance and acceptance, good.
And I listen. That's what I do. Maybe and then I can go listen. So yeah, so I mean, listening. If you really genuinely listen, you have to also take what you text.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, actually this is an interesting one because you say that you're listening and she's saying a lot of negative things. And so how do you turn that into something else? So maybe one of the other signs of love might work better. Maybe if she's unhappy, you have to... Do you know what makes her happy?
Yes.
What makes her happy?
Just walking in the woods together.
Walking with her?
And Baha'i prayers.
Baha'i prayers. How about food? Does that make her happy?
Not so much.
Does it make her happy? Okay. Okay. With me, it makes me happy, just in case we ever have... Okay. Okay. But this... Listening. She likes that. Okay. Okay. Good. Over here now. We have some. What are you going to do?
I have a pure-hearted friend with which my acts have been very selfish. And for the future, I wish to pay more attention and be more supportive.
Okay. So you're talking about someone you were formerly married to? Is that what you mean? Your ex, you say?
Just a friend.
Oh, a friend. Okay. And what exactly is that you have not a loving relationship with them? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying for the future.
Yes. But what are you going to do?
Be more attentive and supportive.
More attentive and supportive. So you're going to listen to them more and try and be more supportive. What do you mean by more supportive?
To be there to the degree I want to be there.
Okay, to be there to the degree that you want. Okay. Yeah, I see. What I'm concerned with is words like supportive or love and so on. In other words, Abdu'l-Baha said love has to manifest itself in action. So I want to know exactly what is the action that you feel you're going to do that you may have not been doing. What is the exact action? You see, it's very easy to say general things like more supportive. It's much harder to translate that and say exactly what that is. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to break the pattern of reading things and say love, and say yes, we love, and say, well, what does that look like in action? So maybe think about it a little bit.
12 signs of love.
Okay, you're going to do all the 12 signs of love? Okay, which of the 12 signs of love do you think you could do with this person?
Unity, foremost.
You're going to value unity higher? Okay. And what else can you do? Can you... Okay. And what does that mean?
It means disregard for self.
Okay. And how about good qualities? Does this person have good qualities?
Oh, very much so.
Okay. Can you focus on those?
Yes.
Can you mention those good qualities to the person?
Yes.
Okay. So these are the things. What I'm trying to say is this, is that we need to actually do these in reality. Not just say, I generally am going to love them. But that's a great place to start. Always it's a good place to start with someone who we don't have the best relationship with, because it trains us to love, and then we can learn to have better relationships with other people immediately. Who else is going to do something? Yes?
Actually, I would like to ask a question, because as I understand, you want us really to think that love is not a very abstract thing.
Yes.
It's a very practical thing.
Yes.
And I also feel that love is very much expressed as a community thing, where we all play a very important role, as you address this all the time. So I was thinking, how do you connect the expression of love to the guidance from the Universal House of Justice and the plan. Some comments on that. In a way, you know, inspires the thinking, connected to neighbors, family.
Yes. So you're asking, how do these things relate to what we're asked to do in the guidance of the House of Justice, the current plan, which is the 5-year plan? Is that what you're asking? Yes. My feeling is that in every aspect of our Baha'i work, it will not work if we don't do it with these 12 things. It won't work. It doesn't matter. You can try all the teaching you want to do, but unless you listen to the people, unless you see the good quality in the people, unless you are of service to the people, it does not matter in terms of teaching. In relation to our children's classes, our core activities, every one of them, if we do not practice these, if we just count numbers, you know, every reflection gathering that we had 20 of these and 10 of these and 10 of those, that doesn't make any difference at all. The Guardian said, without the real love of the believers, he says, none of this Baha'i work will function. So this, what I'm saying, applies to every single aspect of the plan. There is not one thing we can do. If an auxiliary board member has 100 right things to say to the Baha'i community, but it's not said with love and compassion and listening, understanding, it doesn't matter how right it is. Even and if the area teaching committee tries to administer things but they don't do it with love, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we think being right and pushing what is right is important. Well, it's only important to a certain extent. But if it breaks unity, then it is no longer important. So sometimes we try so hard to carry out the plan, but we forget that being right about the plan is still not as important as being united. It's still not as important as being united. Therefore, I'm not saying the plan is not absolutely important. It's not absolutely important. But if it were that important, we would then do it with love. We would then do it with love because it's so important that we need to get it done. So in my opinion, there's not one thing I have said here for the last 5 days that is not absolutely essential for the carrying out of the plan. Now, my feeling is that the execution of the plan is also important for us in our lives. I mean, I didn't talk about it, but quite often I do. In other words, the highest expression of love in that 9th sphere, love for the world, is the carrying out of this plan. In other words, we can create love in our families, in our communities, and so on. But if we want to spread this love to mankind, we need to look at the guidance of the Universal House of Justice and what we're asked to do in terms of, you know, building up this system that has unlimited potentialities. And by building that, we can spread this love to the world. In other words, the House has given us a means whereby Baha'u'llah's love can go from 0.1% to the other 99.9%, and that is this means. And so we need to carry out the plan, but we need to understand that it has to be done with these qualities of love. So there's a relationship there that is absolutely essential, and I'm glad you brought that up, because otherwise some of you might go home and think, well, I'm just going to practice love and I'm going to forget about the plan. No, you need to do both, absolutely do both. Thank you for that question. Who's got some, we'll go back to the main question, is what are some of you going to do?
I have a difficult situation which I have strong responsibility for, and I'm totally stuck, so I would like some advice from you if possible. It's a family member. She has been seriously ill for maybe 20 years, and she has spent a lot of time and energy and praying to get better. But in this process, she has used lots of strong medicines, and you can see that now, and you can notice sometimes, but she's a very loving, including, and serving person, whom I respect a lot and love a lot. And to our family, there has come a young person who wants to be a part of our family. And he is abusing her in words and in writing and in actions. whenever the opportunity rises. And she's trying to push this sick person out of our family union. And I feel totally stuck. Up till now, I just tried to invite this young person to our family dinner and barbecues, summer leisure activities, and trying to show that we want to show love and
yes.
get to know him. But up till now, we have all failed, so we have to deal with this when I come from summer school. So I would love some advice because it's too close to my eyes, so I blinded myself.
Yes. Now, this is a very common question that I've gotten in many talks, and generally it's not exactly that, but what it is that it's easy to understand how to show love to someone when you have a relationship that you want to correct. But sometimes there is disunity between two people. There's disunity, and you want to be a peacemaker, but to show love to that person is that person gets mad, and to show love to that person, that goes bad, because you're kind of forced to take sides. And so, in other words, people are, because of their lack of love, are forcing you to be disunited with one or the other. Is that right? In fact, many times it's harder to do that. And the goal is to always be loving to all parties and to never take sides. That is the most important rule anytime there is disunity, is that you must show love to both parties. And if one party requires you to not show love to that person, or vice versa, you're in a dilemma, so you have to learn to still keep loving those people and to not give in. Never take sides. In fact, many times I've seen whole families disunited because two people have a problem, but then they get half the family on that side, half, and now you've got 20 people hating 20 people because of the taking of sides. Taking of sides is kind of like a cancer. It's kind of like something grows. So the first thing is you've got to say, let's look at these two parties and how can I love each? What are the 12 signs of love with this person, 12 signs of love with that person, and I must show both love. Now maybe I can be a peacemaker and get them to see each other in the right way. Maybe I cannot. You know, you can't change people totally, but you can love them. But the first goal is not to withdraw your love from either of these two. And that's the first step. From there, try and convince other people in the family to show love and see the good in each of these people, to give attention, to give time, to be of service, you know, all of these qualities. In other words, I don't think that Baha'i would have mentioned these things over and over again if they didn't work. You know, if they didn't work. But sometimes we don't give these things credit. So try some of the 12 signs of love towards each of these two parties and see what happens. That's my only suggestion. Yes, you want to ask her?
Yeah, because I think that the person who is being bullied, she needs protection.
You think that someone needs protection? Yes. Yes.
The abusing part is so strong, so young, so powerful, and so is not at all showing any signs of, of compassion.
I understand. Then I think you do need to protect the person from the bullying of the other one. But that doesn't mean that you need to do so by withdrawing love towards the bullying person. You still need to see what that bullying person needs in terms of praise and gratitude and assistance, and never backbite about the bullying person to the... In other words, all the same principles still need to apply. But yes, if someone needs protection, then that is a sign of love, and you need to protect them.
Yeah, and I also thought about this you talked about this machine.
In which?
You talked about this love machine.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
In the last session, and when something hits back, and yeah, who knows what is going on, I think. Should we just let things go on and think this is maybe the punishment this one person gets for something he did or she did? That is one of the dilemmas which has been really bothering my
Yes.
mind today. So
Ultimately, we can only do what we can do. It is not for us to punish other people for their sins. They will either learn or not learn, and suffer or not suffer. All we can do is love them. And if we start thinking that we need to hurt other people or unlove them or punish them or do justice, it's not going to help us. Ultimately, we have to do it. But by all means, protect anyone if they're in any kind of danger, either physical or emotional. And we could talk about this more later. This is a very complex thing. Love is not that easy, is it? I'm not saying that it's so easy. Oh, you know, you read other Baha'i, it says, whoa, why didn't you say so? And you go out to the world and you just do it. It's not that easy. But we have the power. And of course, prayer is very important in situations where you feel you're powerless to do something, because God is greater than that. So this is a hard one, but I hope that you can get through it and pray for it. Yes, one here?
I want to show more love to my beloved local assembly.
To your beloved local assembly, yes.
And I would like to do that by listening to them, to
Yes.
see if I can do any service for them. I would like to, at their next meeting, make something sweet for them to eat.
Good.
And I would like
And you'd like to pray for them. Now, when you say you'd like to show more love to your local assembly, which is what you said, does that mean that you don't feel that you have been showing enough?
Never enough.
Never enough. Okay. Very good. Love for the local assembly. That's great. Okay. Just one more, and then we're going to close, I think. Isn't that right? Are we almost finished? Over here. Okay, two more, because she had her hand too. Yeah, you go. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
من میخوام در آخر این جلسه که دیگه فکر نمی‌کنم وقت زیادی مونده باشه فقط اینو بگم که ما یه مسئله داریم ایرانی‌ها که میگیم از محبت خارها گل میشود.
Oh, can someone translate that?
There's an expression in Persian. There's an expression in Persian that all the thorns of the flowers, by love, will turn to love.
All the thorns of the flowers.
By love, will turn to love.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's very nice. So I'm going to conclude now. I'd like to read the rest of this passage from Baha'u'llah that I read yesterday, because Baha'u'llah basically says that if we decide to unite and love, that we are going, he says that we are going to fulfill our destiny. I'm going to read this. He says, the word of God has set the heart of the world aflame. How regrettable if ye fail to be enkindled with its flame. Please God, ye will regard this blessed night as the night of unity, will knit your souls together and resolve to adorn yourselves with the ornament of a goodly and praiseworthy character. And I just love the way he says that you will regard this night as the night of unity and will knit your souls together. How many of you knit? How many of you knit? Don't you love that word? Because what does knitting do? It doesn't just put them together, you know, but to knit, come here, let's knit. Okay, so this is just putting together, but how would we knit? Okay, we'd have to, you see, it would be quite hard to knit, isn't that right? And that's how he wants our souls to be knit. It's such an interesting word. Now, he says, please God, ye will regard this night as the night of unity and will knit your souls together. So tonight is our last night here, is that right? So we only have one more chance to fulfill what Baha'u'llah. Tonight I want you to knit your soul. You don't have to do it physically like we just did there, because it will look very funny. But you need to knit your souls together. He says, and resolve to adorn yourselves with the ornament of a goodly and praiseworthy character. He says he wants you tonight to knit your souls together and resolve to adorn yourselves with a praiseworthy character. How many of you are resolving here and now to adorn your character with a praiseworthy behavior? Who's resolved? You need to make that resolution. He says your behavior toward your neighbor should be such as to manifest clearly the signs of the one true God. In other words, your behavior towards your neighbor should be manifesting God. Whatever is God, that's how you have to be towards your neighbor. That's what he's asking of you, to be like God to your neighbor. He says, for ye are the first among men to be recreated by his Spirit, the first to adore and bow the knee before him, the first to circle round his throne of glory. He says, see, you are the first. There's a 99.9% have not received this message. You are the first, so you have to be God to the other people. We can only bring God to the world through you. And you say, how could it possibly be me? How could it be us that have been chosen for this role? And Baha'u'llah says, I swear by him who hath caused me to reveal whatever hath pleased him. Ye are better known to the inmates of the kingdom on high than ye are known to your own selves. And you're reading what Baha'u'llah says. He says, hold on. I'm saying, Baha'u'llah is saying that you are better known to those in the kingdom on high than you know yourself. How many of you know yourself? You know yourself pretty well, don't you? And here Baha'u'llah is saying, there's somebody up there that knows you better than you know yourself. And I'm looking around. Because I'm saying, who knows me better than I know myself? And that's what Baha'u'llah is saying. He says, you are better known because you have been chosen, he's saying, for this job, because you're the first. You're the first to be able to manifest God. And so I'm saying, come on, Baha'u'llah, you have to be exaggerating. You mean there's people up there right now looking down that know me better than I know myself? And Baha'u'llah seems to say, I'm glad you asked that question. Because he says, think ye these words to be vain and empty? That's what he says. He asks the question. You think I'm just saying these things? He says, think ye these words to be vain and empty? He says, would that ye had the power to perceive the things your Lord, the All-Merciful, doth see, things that attest the excellence of your rank, that bear witness to the greatness of your worth, that proclaim the sublimity of your station. God grant that your desires and unmortified passions may not hinder you from that which hath been ordained for you. So he's saying something has been ordained for you. What has been ordained for you is that you can be the sign of God in the world to every person you meet, that you can knit your souls together, that you can regard this night as the night of unity. That has been ordained for you, and you're the first to have that ordained. And he just says, God grant that your desires and passions don't prevent you from something that's been ordained for you. So I hope tonight you will resolve to knit your souls together, to make this the night of unity, and to go home and every day until you go to the next world to practice the 12 signs of love. Thank you all very much.
Be content with showing friendship in words alone. Do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn, let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn, let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. Let your heart burn, let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path.